Hi, my name is Lucy Davis, and I'm here to talk to you today about my KVET grant called Poppin with Phonics, a multi-sensory approach to phonics and reading. A little bit about myself. I've been a teacher for 11 years, 10 of which have been spent in the classroom and 1 year as an administrator. I've taught all grades, almost all grades. I've taught first, third, fifth, and I served as a middle school assistant principal. I have 2 master's degrees, one in curriculum and instruction and one in K-12 school administration. And I'm currently teaching in Floyd County at Steamboat Elementary, where I am where I'm a first grade teacher. It was my work with my first graders that led me to become so passionate about how we learn to read and the science behind how our brains learn how to read, which is why I did Poppin with Phonics. So the overview of my presentation today, walking through my implementation, my literature review, and my action plan for how to implement a multisensory approach to teaching phonics. My area of focus for this specific research project is phonemic awareness, decoding and encoding, and reading comprehension, which are 3 of the components of how an individual learns how to read. Just a quick overview of some of the statistics applying to the need for quality reading education. We know that most of our K-12 students in America are at risk for not being proficient readers. 34% of children entering kindergarten lack the basic skills to learn to read, meaning basic alphabet knowledge and basic print concepts. 65% of 4th graders are reading below grade level. That is the national average. And in Kentucky, you can see that that's also our state average. That 65% of our Kentucky 4th graders are not reading at a proficient level. The overreaching statistic, which is alarming, is that 43% of our adults are functionally illiterate, meaning that if they're given an adult level text or even a high school level text, they're not able to process or glean any information from it. Being illiterate also affects your writing capabilities. So these individuals may not be able to sign their name or be able to process reading tasks that are required for daily life, right? Ordering at McDonald's, opening a bank account, things like that. The literature review for learning how to read and the science behind learning how to read is vast. Scientific researchers, and I use that word scientific because neurologists, psychologists, those are some of the forefront leaders in reading science or brain science and relating to how we learn how to read. But the 3 pieces that I picked out that were most applicable to my research project was the need for explicit instruction with specific sequential elements, the multisensory approach, meaning that multiple exposures through multiple avenues help students build quicker pathways in their brain, and then Scarboroughs reading rope, which illustrates the complexities involved in learning how to read and comprehend. So I wanted to show you Scarboroughs reading rope. This has been around for several years, but it highlights the complexities involved in learning how to read. So we have 2 parts of the rope: word recognition and language comprehension. When we think about learning how to read in primary, and I'm using the word primary to describe kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, when students are learning how to read in primary, these 2 headings, language comprehension and word recognition, are typically taught in separate instructional blocks. Word recognition comes with phonics instruction. Language comprehension comes in the form of reading instruction. So what we're doing is a 2-fold approach to teaching young kids how to read. We're teaching them phonics skills and phonemic awareness in conjunction with rich oral reading comprehension activities, because as students are building up these individual pieces, not only are they becoming more automatic with their phonics skills, but they're also becoming more strategic with the observations that they're making from text. And then once they hit that 2nd, 3rd grade cusp, right, we're no longer learning to read, we're reading to learn. That's when the rope becomes braided. And that's where we really focus on what is the main idea of this informational text? What is the theme of this fable? And so when we think about Scarborough's reading rope, we're really thinking about how can we address these for our students in a way that helps them link together, and that we're using quality instructional techniques to teach what is truly the science of reading. Up here in the corner, I want to draw attention. This is from a book called Equipped in Reading Success, written by Dr. David Kilpatrick, who is a front runner in the brain science behind learning how to read. The American Federation of Teachers, which is the second largest teachers union in the nation, noted the gap between scientific research and classroom practice in 1999. And here we are slowly coming up on 2022. So the disconnect between what we know works and how our brain works and what we're doing in the classroom, there is a gap in that instructional practice. And so when I wrote my research grant for KVEC, I really wanted to hone in and pay attention to those minute details that really push our kids to become stronger readers. This is a term that I've spoken about earlier, science of reading, the idea that I can take the scientific research of how our brain absorbs spoken and written information and turns it into reading and language expression. These are 4 books that I found very critical during my journey. That is far from over, right? You never stop learning about how to teach kids how to read. But Equipped for Reading Success, The Knowledge Gap, Speech to Print, and Uncovering the Logic of English are 4 critical texts in shaping my understanding that first, we have to make sure that our students can hear and differentiate all of the sounds. And then can I turn those sounds that you're hearing into letters, right? And that's a gap. That's a huge jump. And it's a very abstract concept when you're thinking about students who are coming from challenging backgrounds. So that brings me to my action plan and what I implemented in Poppin with Phonics, which is the title of my research project. Number 1, we implemented a sequential phonics program. This was something that my school opted to do with our administration. We implemented 2 programs, Really Great Reading and Heggerty Phonics. Heggerty is a phonemic awareness program. It's about 10 minutes a day, and it is all verbal, and it focuses on those spoken sounds, segmenting, blending, and substitution, which are critical skills when you're reading and building words on your own. Really Great Reading is a structured phonics program that, again, focuses on brain science, multiple exposures, multiple ways, and there is a clear order to the skills that we're teaching to our students. The next strategy that I chose to implement was multisensory instructional strategies. A portion of my KVEC money was used to create word work bags that included Poppets, Play-Doh, sound boxes, and whisper phones to allow my students to experience words and sounds in many different ways. And then lastly, decodable readers, which are controlled texts that match specific phonics skills. So these were the 3 overreaching components of my research project that I implemented in order to increase my students' reading proficiency. My research question is how does multisensory instruction support growth in reading for first grade students? My caveat that I explained in my application and that I want to make clear now and it goes back to this image right here, Scarboroughs reading rope. At the end of my research project, can I say for certain that the instructional strategies that I implemented are the reasons that my kids become proficient readers? Absolutely not. And Scarborough's reading rope clearly illustrates why I cannot say for certain that my instructional strategies are the reason that I create proficient readers. However, because of the strategies that I chose, I know for sure that I'm strengthening a portion of his reading rope. And so it's my hope that the strategies that I pick and implement in my classroom and that I expose my students to are one of the reasons that they build their reading and that they become proficient readers. So implementation, my daily implementation for my research program follows the same pattern. We begin our day with Heggerty, which is a fully vocal program. There's no writing component to it. It's something that can be done in the dark, quote unquote. It comes in a book. There's no technology. We're speaking, we're listening, we're clapping, we're doing it together as a family. And then we transition into Really Great Reading. Within Really Great Reading is where I have intertwined my multisensory instructional strategies. My students get their word work bags every day when we start phonics, and we choose the tool that we're going to use for the day. Most of the time we're using our Poppet and our Play-Doh. We're using Play-Doh to build the words, and we're using Poppets to isolate the sounds. And during the lesson, students are using different tools as we go through different activities.